No more than 1 hour ago, my life took a giant leap towards getting back to normal. I got my second dose of the vaccine. After 1 year, 2 weeks, and 3 days of avoiding crowded places, using hand sanitizer constantly, wearing a mask, watching events get canceled, and seeing not a single one of my friends in person, there is finally a part of me that can breathe a little easier. Figuratively, that is, although I guess literally as well. The pandemic is certainly not over, and I will continue to wear my mask in public and avoid crowded places. Now is not the time to get slack, but for the first time in a year, there's hope. We have come a long way. Thinking back on it now, there was the initial fear but overwhelming empathy of the early days. With a sense that we were all in this together, people pitched in to help their neighbor. It was inspiring to see. By the summer, people's patience waned and desperation grew, leading to an explosion of frustration across the world. It was upsetting to see. By winter, defiance and devastation went hand in hand, with human life lost in utterly tragic numbers. Not since World War II did we experience tragedy so regularly. It was demoralizing to see. Today, entering our second spring of the pandemic, on the precipice of relief, we are so close to the end. So filled with hope. Through it all, we find ourselves actually believing that there could be a different future. So what have we learned? Looking back on this experience and all we've been through, how will we be different people on the other side? Well, I think we can definitively say that we as a people have come to understand the necessity of charity because more of us than ever have had to rely on it. As Catholics, we have come to realize how fundamentally essential the sacraments are in our lives. We've never known a time without them and now know that we never want to go without them again. In general, I suspect the majority of us will simply walk away with a greater appreciation of the smaller things in life. Casual time spent with a friend, the comfort of human touch, the ability to travel. What might have seemed like a burden at times before now has a refreshing joy to it. And that's wonderful. As awful as this has all been, and this is no way to give justification to the pandemic, we can certainly hope that a silver lining of it all will be that we return to our world with far more joy than we ever had before. What a gift that would be. And yet, I'm guessing that's not why you're here, is it? As you've no doubt inferred from the title, I'm not so optimistic that we will enter this new world an entirely different people. Sadly, as much as this pandemic has shown the best of who we can be, it has also uncovered the worst of who we actually are, and I don't think that we've learned as much from this as we should have. As much as we like to believe that we were all in this together, that all of us were suffering the same things, the reality is that we were never really in this together. We all had to stay at home, yes, but the homes we stayed in were nowhere close to equal, if we even had a home at all. As celebrities tried to empathize with us normals, their million-dollar homes stood in great contrast to the millions of people facing evictions, food insecurity, and poverty. The limited supplies of toilet paper, hand sanitizer, fresh water, and PPE led many to hoard far more than they needed, states to fight with other states, and many poorer countries to be left with nothing at all.
After the first COVID-19 death in the United States, Colvin went state to state clearing out sanitizer shelves. He now sits with 18,000 unused bottles in his home and storage unit, while people in the Tennessee Valley struggle to find one.
Even right now with the vaccine rollout, there is an unconscionable disparity between rich and poor nations. One study revealed that while high-income nations account for only 19% of the global adult population collectively, they have purchased more than half, 54% of global vaccine doses purchased to date, estimating that there will not be enough doses of vaccines for the whole world until at least 2023. So yes, if you're watching this video from a rich country, it may seem like the pandemic is nearly over. But for those living in poorer countries, for the majority of the world, it's nowhere close to over. Meaning that it's actually nowhere close to over for anyone. If a highly infectious disease is still running rampant in one part of the world, even if it's not in your part of the world, even if you have the vaccine, everyone continues to be at risk. And that very simple point, The understanding that we have not only a personal identity, but a collective one. That we have not only individual rights, but also a responsibility to care for the common good, is something that we've failed to learn in this pandemic. Despite being thrown into a global crisis with a vested interest in seeking what is best for all, too many people, maybe even most people, have shown that one's personal needs will always come before and even despite the needs of the common good. Some have grown a bit in charity, yes, but few have learned anything about justice. It's still a matter of my rights versus your rights without any recognition that your ability to flourish greatly affects my ability to flourish. It's still a matter of hoarding hand sanitizer for me and my family without realizing that if other people don't have any, they will get sick and inevitably they'll get me sick. I don't know how else to say this, but it's selfish. It's childish. It's greedy and short-sighted and is the natural result of a tribalistic worldview that shuts itself off from the needs of others, making capitalism and nationalism its god. Caring about yourself first and to the detriment of others may be a survival tactic, but it is certainly contrary to being a Christian. In fact, the Catholic Church teaches that it is contrary to being human. A society that wishes and intends to remain at the service of the human being at every level is a society that has the common good, the good of all people and of the whole person, as its primary goal. The human person cannot find fulfillment in himself, that is, apart from the fact that he exists with others and for others. This truth does not simply require that he live with others at various levels of social life, but that he seek unceasingly, in actual practice and not merely at the level of ideas, the good, that is, the meaning and truth found in existing forms of social life. No expression of social life, from the family to intermediate social groups, associations, enterprises of economic nature, cities, regions, states, up to the community of peoples and nations, can escape the issue of its own common good, in that this is a constitutive element of its significance and the authentic reason for its very existence. In layman's terms, no man is an island. To separate one's personal rights from one's communal responsibilities is to separate the very person from what it means to be a human being. We are communal by nature, dependent upon and finding our ultimate fulfillment in our interactions with others. Without being with and for others, we fail to reach the fulfillment of our own humanity. To ignore our brother and sister in need, to perpetuate expressions of social life that cause harm in another, not only hurts the other person, but fundamentally hurts us as well, because human existence is interconnected. All of creation is interconnected. To hurt another undermines the very purpose of being alive, to be in communion with all that God has made, leaving us in a very real way less than fully human. And this is more than just some lofty, potentially abstract theological ideal. The fact of the matter is that a failure to care for the common good, a failure to take responsibility for the justice of a society, has serious, tangible effects on our own individual livelihoods. Caring about yourself first and to the detriment of others may be a survival tactic, but it's not a very good one. Meet Richard Wilkinson. He's a social epidemiologist, someone who studies how social institutions affect health in a society, and in a way, the health of a society itself. In his many years of research, he has come to two conclusions that should startle those of us who live in the richer, developed world. The first is that the single greatest factor for predicting social dysfunction in a society is not the amount of money a country or its individuals have, but the level of inequality that exists within it. How far are the rich from the poor? The reason for this, he argues, is because of the unnecessary social stress that this places on people. Having very little money may not be great, but if everyone else has very little money as well, there's a sense of solidarity, a sense that at least everyone is in it together. This is not so when inequality increases. When the separation between rich and poor becomes greater, so too does the stress and social unrest of a society. Why? Because the sense of abandonment grows as well. The sense of exclusion becomes more apparent. It's not that we're all struggling together, it's that I'm struggling while others have abundance, showing me that I'm not worth anything to you. The poor in the United States may have it better financially than those in a poorer country, but the social weight of living in poverty in the richest nation on earth, of knowing that the situation could be better, we just choose not to fix it, crushes people. Nations as a whole may have tremendous resources at their disposal dedicated to education and health and social welfare programs. They may even have an overall higher standard of living than other nations. But this does not guarantee success. In the countries he studied, there appears to be a direct causation between inequality and social unrest. But it's even worse than that. For not only does inequality cause greater overall harm that's felt particularly among the poor, it has a direct effect on the rich as well. The richest in unequal countries fare worse than the richest in more equal countries in things like infant mortality, overall health, homicide rates, and life expectancy, to name a few.
You see there that Sweden does better than Britain all the way across the social hierarchy. The biggest difference is at the bottom of society, but even at the top, there seems to be a small benefit to being in a more equal society. We show that on about 5 different sets of data covering educational outcomes and health in the United States and internationally, and that seems to be the general picture, that greater equality makes most difference at the bottom, but has some benefit even at the top.
It is not enough to have money yourself. It is not enough to ensure your own personal rights. When inequality grows and certain segments of the population are filled with anxiety, pushed to desperation, driven to despair. In other words, when a society is sick, everyone is affected. If the rich want what is best for themselves, they must stop thinking of only themselves and must begin to think of everyone, of the common good. Unfortunately, the pandemic has brought us no closer to accepting this truth. Since the pandemic began a little over a year ago, US billionaires increased their wealth by $1.3 trillion, while an estimated 200 million people have fallen into extreme poverty worldwide. People who were already unnecessarily rich got richer, while 200 million people reached a level so poor that they're barely surviving. But it's not just the billionaires. 1% of the global population, about 78 million people, likely me and most of you, control 46% of the world's wealth, while almost half of the world lives on less than $5.50 a day. 1% of the world controls 46% of its resources, while half of the world lives on less than $5.50 a day. That's at most that they live on. This is unconscionable. So yes, the pandemic has definitely been difficult in some ways for all of us, but it hasn't been as difficult for all of us. While many of us have grown a bit in charity, and that's great, the systemic injustices that cause poverty in the first place have only gotten worse. The poor are poorer now than they were a year ago, meaning that all of us are worse off than we were a year ago. The common good matters. Insisting that your neighbor have equal rights and opportunities to you is not simply a nice thing to do, it is constitutive to the very nature of humanity. You cannot be fully human. You most certainly cannot be a follower of Christ if you care only for your own rights without any regard to how those rights hurt others. If we want what's best for ourselves and our children, if we want to flourish as a people, if we want to call ourselves Christians, we must take responsibility for the structures in our society that allows us to benefit while others suffer. If we accept that extreme inequality is not only bad for the poor, but bad for us as well, then it might be time to do something about it. It might be time to give up some of our own wealth and privileges so that others may live. Come now, you rich, weep and wail over your impending miseries. Your wealth has rotted away. Your clothes have become moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and that corrosion will be a testimony against you. It will devour your flesh like a fire. You have stored up treasure for the last days. Behold, the wages you withheld from the workers who harvested your fields are crying aloud, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on earth in luxury and pleasure. You have fattened your hearts for the day of slaughter. You have condemned. You have murdered the righteous one. he offers you no resistance. St. James had it right 2,000 years ago. Being wealthy while others starve benefits no one and ultimately leads to our own condemnation. Store up treasure for yourselves in heaven, charity, works of justice, care for the poor, things that moth and decay cannot destroy, thieves cannot steal, and you will have life within you. Many in rich countries are fortunate enough to get the vaccine today, and if you're able to, you should. But the pandemic is far from over. It will not be over until the whole world is safe, until the poorest have the same opportunities that we do. Remember the common good. Remember that it is not just about me and you, but about everyone. Remember that we truly are in this together. If you have abundance while your neighbor suffers, something has to change.